Welcome to My Tech Opinion, Episode 3. My name is Phil Edwards, and I'll be joined in a moment by my regular co-host, Shayne Johnston. Today, we'll have a quick look at the tech news, as well as talking about our feature topic, which is how fast does your internet connection really need to be? But we'll get to that straight after this. And welcome back to My Tech Opinion. This is episode 3, and my name is Phil Edwards, and I'm in Melbourne, as you can see at the top of the screen, and I'm joined by my regular co-host, Shayne Johnston. G'day, Shayne. How are you?
Hey, Phil. How you going?
Good. And we're back for another episode, and I hope those people who are watching or listening on the podcast have enjoyed the first two. We're still finding our feet, but we're getting there, absolutely. Now, I just wanted to mention quickly that My Tech Opinion is brought to you by Aussie Tech Heads Web Hosting. For great hosting plans and support, visit athwebhosting.com.au. Now, for those who haven't seen the show before, My Tech Opinion is a new show that covers tech news, but we don't just gloss over it. We cover a couple of topics in depth as well, and we'll hopefully in the future have guests to give us a bit of a deeper understanding of the topics to join in our discussion. Today's feature topic, though, we pose the question, how fast is fast enough when it comes to residential broadband speeds? Before, though, we dive into the hot topics, let's have a quick look at the latest tech news. Okay, now it's time for tech news. First off today, Optus is going to build a 5G network in Australian capital cities. Optus has fired a warning shot at NBN Co, unveiling plans to offer high-speed fixed wireless services in key metro areas based on 5G technology. The telco today said it intended to start rolling out, the telco said this week, because it's, I'm basing it on an article from the other day, it intended to start rolling out its 5G network in Australia by early 2019. However, rather than being a straight mobile play, it will begin by offering a fixed wireless product aimed at city users. Telcos have been emboldened to build out fixed wireless networks over the past year or so because the government considers mobile networks generally not to be competitive to its NBN build, and therefore they remain unencumbered by anti-competitive measures. To date, providers building their own NBN-like services using fixed wireless have been in regional and rural areas targeting NBN black spots or areas where NBN Co's services are slow or unreliable. The entry of a much larger player into the fixed wireless space could force the government to reconsider its stance. This is a really interesting play, Shayne, from Optus. And while I can see the point, I also think that this is part of the cause of our problems in the first place, because Optus are saying we are going to focus purely on cities. And the issue with the NBN is that it's designed or supposed to be a access for all network. Now, we know that it's been bastardized a bit, but that's a whole other discussion. But the fact that companies like Optus, TPG are guilty of it as well, have cherry-picked where they think they can make the most money. Do you agree with that idea, or do you think that it's just the start for Optus in the 5G rollout phase?
I can see both sides of it because, and I think this is where NBN Co may have dropped the ball a little bit in that, the early rumours were that they actually started the NBN in areas that kind of aligned with the Labor government seats at the time because they're the ones that kind of kicked it off.
Yeah.
I have no problems with that because where I am, I have the fibre to the premises NBN, so
yeah,
I don't care what the reason was. But I guess they need to go initially where the population is so they could start making the money quicker or the money earlier, so then they can roll out the network quicker, which is the argument to why the NBN itself is the rollout has taken so long, and the thing's blown out and price wise, is because they didn't do it in a way where they could hit the big population early to start rolling in the money to then reinvest into the rest of the network.
It'll be, you're right, and it'll be an interesting one to see how this plays out. There was another article which I might include in the show notes for those who are playing along at home, that NBN actually own 5G spectrum that they've bought at a substantially lower price than what the other providers have been buying the spectrum for. We'll go along something, and I'm making a figure up, but to give you the price discrepancy, it was 6 cents per gigahertz per person in the populated areas, and Telstra and Optus and Vodafone are paying around 50 cents per gigahertz per person. I'm not getting those figures exactly right, but you get the idea of the disparity in the pricing. So the government did that, but then, NBN haven't obviously at this stage rolled out 5G services. Not that there's really 5G services to roll out worldwide. It's still in a test phase. The other thing I'll include in the show notes and we could even talk about this in a deep dive in another episode, but there is a video that I've been made aware of today. I haven't even had a chance to watch it yet. I've only had it in my links that shorter period of time. But it's called 5G Will Save the World. But it also talks about the positives and the negatives of 5G. And one of the things I know it touches on is that it's using spectrum that is finite. So there could be issues there. So it'll be interesting to have a look at that. So I'll include that in the show notes for people to have a look at.
And the other thing with the 5G, I was under the impression that it was going to be used for different purposes. It was going to be used for things like car to traffic signal kind of communication, or car to car communication, that kind of thing. Because, again, as I understand it, with the 5G network, I don't know if it's the actual frequency that's the problem or the technology behind it, but you have to have smaller base stations. There's a mate of mine who's actually the manager in charge of the Optus rollout for their mobiles for WA, Northern Territory and South Australia. That's basically what he was saying, that the 5G base stations are a lot smaller, so you can whack them on a lamp pole if you wanted to. But they actually have to be kind of put closer together so the actual signal can kind of continue on.
Are they using a higher frequency? Because if I'm correct, the lower the frequency, the better spread you get. So if you're using, say, 900 megahertz frequency, they would use for 3G and 4G services in regional areas, whereas the 1800 and 2100s are really good for capital cities where they've got the facility to build multi-base stations. So that might be, I'll have to have a look at that. We can have that as a bit of an action item for our next episode. About that as well. But that is very interesting. We might move on to the next topic of the news. Tesla and the South Australian government are set to create the world's largest virtual power plant. The South Australian government will build what it says is the world's largest virtual power plant by rolling out solar panels and Tesla batteries to at least 50,000 homes. Installation is planned over the next 4 years, and those households will combine to create a 250 megawatt virtual power plant. Energy generated from the solar panels will be stored in the Tesla batteries, and any excess energy will be fed back to the grid, which will be centrally controlled and provide energy to the rest of the state when required. In an initial trial, it has already commenced. A 5 kilowatt solar panel system and a 13.5 kilowatt Tesla Powerwall 2 will be installed in 1,100 public housing properties for free, with the sale of electricity to cover costs. Following this, an additional 24,000 public houses will receive the systems. A wider rollout for private homes is planned in 2019, depending on the success of the trial. Tesla says that when completed, the virtual power facility will provide as much capacity as a large gas turbine or a coal power plant. Quoting Tesla, they've said Powerwall can detect an outage, disconnect from the grid, and automatically restore power to your home in a fraction of a second. The government's virtual power plant frequently asked question section reads, as long as the battery has storage in it at the time, you will not even notice that the power went out. I think this is a great idea in principle. Do you think that the government is wasting taxpayers' money to do this, or this is a good initiative to combat the fact that South Australia has a lot of power supply issues? And do you think this is going to catch on elsewhere?
I don't know if it'll catch on elsewhere. The Premier of South Australia, he was on the project the other night. I don't know if you saw it or not, because they were talking about this particular initiative. And I guess every new technology, when it comes out expensive. And then when economies of scale kind of kick in, and that's when the price drops. So you got to start somewhere and at some time. And he's already kind of led the way with the Tesla battery that's out in the middle of South Australia or wherever they put it.
Yep.
He's already got the relationship with Tesla. I can't remember exactly what he was referring to, but he said that, you know, since they put the battery in, the battery's kind of kicked in a couple of times. And I can't remember the name of the coal-fired power station, and you might have to put it in a kind of a change our kind of category on this podcast, because he said on the project, he said if that particular power station hadn't shut itself in the first place, we wouldn't have had to go down the road and get and do what we've done with the battery and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, it'll be. I mean, we need to get rid of coal fire, regardless, because. Really? Forgetting about the pollution thing, the coal's going to run out at some point. So, we've got to do it from that perspective. The thing is that the batteries do die after 10 to 15 years, and will pay for new power walls to be installed. And I think solar panels only have a limited lifespan as well. I mean, long term, but still limited. But I would be interesting to see the modeling of how much energy, because the whole point is it's predicated on the fact that the energy generated during the day is more than the household needs. So it'll be interesting to see how much it feeds back into the grid, as opposed to topping up the storage and then moving on to that phase. So yeah, it'll be an interesting exercise, and I'll be keenly looking to see how widely it gets rolled out. So I have a feeling it might not get rolled out as widely as they're suggesting it could.
Yeah, but do you reckon that's because of the technology, or do you reckon that's because the South Australian Premier has got everybody else offside and it's more of a personal thing?
No, I don't think it's the technology. I do think it's the technology, in the sense that it depends on. So one of the issues with solar power is that let's take Tesla batteries out of the equation. That the whole idea of solar panels is that during the day when the sun's out, you generate X amount of power. You might use some of it, but whatever you don't use, you put back into the electricity grid. Then what happens is that at night, when there's no sun, you have to use power from the grid. You've got no other option. So what you're hoping is that you generate more power during the day than you use at night.
Yep.
Now, the Tesla Powerwall adds a nice little extra step, because, the same principle applies. You use what you generate during the day and you take it off the grid at night. But instead of taking it directly from the grid, you'll take it from the Powerwall first and then switch over to the grid when that runs out. The thing is that the way, in terms of the economics of it from a residential perspective in Australia, is all about the feed-in tariff. So what you get as a credit for the amount of electricity you generate. Now, historically, the feed-in tariffs have dropped. I mean, if you got onto solar early, you would have been laughing and you never have to pay a bill. Now it's not as good. But do the South Australian government value the feed-in tariff at a higher price than what they actually pay for it, if that makes sense? Because then if they do, then it could be cost effective for them.
Yep.
That said, one of the other concerns with solar energy is that people are suggesting that some people have said if you have more than a certain percentage of households having solar panels feeding into the grid, the problem with that is that it's an inconsistent power supply.
Mhm.
So you get cloud cover, doesn't generate as much energy. It gets dark, you don't generate any energy. You would hope then that by having a percentage, all with the same technology, it would provide a consistent supply of power, and it might be more what's the word? More consistent. And it may actually shore up the grid by having that many in there, like the economies of scale discussion. So, look, good luck to Tesla and the South Australian government. I genuinely hope it works, because I'd love a Tesla Powerwall at my house and a few solar panels on the roof as well. But one day, hopefully.
Yeah.
Let's move on to other news. Apple, they set a revenue record last quarter with $88 billion in sales in the most recent 3-month period. Apple continued its streak of record-breaking holiday quarters, coasting to new heights yet again with a revenue of $88.3 billion and earnings per share of $3.89, based largely on the highest ever selling prices for the iPhone lineup. That last bit of the line is the key there. The biggest story in Apple's quarter was the average selling price of the iPhone reaching about $796 and representing by far the highest level for the handset. Those numbers were no doubt driven by the launch of the iPhone X, which carries a US $999 and up price tag. That said, overall for iPhone sales were actually down 1.2% year over year, reaching 77.3 million units and coming short of investor expectations. However, revenue from the iPhone came in higher than Wall Street anticipated due to the massive average selling price. Investors had forecast that Apple would sell 79 million iPhones in the quarter, which would have beat out the old record, The previous record of 78.3 million was a year ago in a holiday quarter of the 2016 year, Apple's first fiscal quarter of the 2017 financial year. For comparison, the fiscal quarter of 2017, Apple generated $78.4 billion in revenue. In the first fiscal quarter of 2016, spanning the calendar. This is confusing me. I didn't even proofread this, Shayne. In the first fiscal calendar quarter of 2016, spanning the calendar year to 2015 holiday quarter, following the iPhone 6S release, Apple generated $75.9 billion. And for the holiday quarter in 2014, Apple cranked out 74.6 on the strength of the large-screen iPhone 6 family launch. In other words, quarter for quarter, the same quarter each year, they've gone up in their revenue, but the sales of the phone have dropped 1.2%. Now, still, 77.3 million phones is nothing to sneeze at. And all the other providers would love those sort of figures. But and we talked about this on my other show, Geeks Interrupted, where we were saying that hopefully that the average selling price, that the fact that they're saying that the iPhone X was down on expectations, that Apple may actually reduce the price on their devices in future generations. The suggestion was that the screen, the OLED screen, which is manufactured by Samsung, and they're the only manufacturer available, has created this sudden price rise. But Apple, I think, are also testing the waters in terms of how much will we take? How much will the average consumer take?
Yep.
If they saw a bigger drop and a higher uptake of Android-based devices, I think they'd be a lot more concerned. But I do think that the average selling price will drop. The other thing is that and which they haven't talked about these figures, but it would also look at what markets they're selling the phones in. So you'd probably sell a lot more in Australia, the United States, the UK, but emerging markets such as China, which they would probably sell in higher numbers, but proportionally, they probably sell more iPhone 8s because they're at a cheaper price point. Particularly India, they're after cheaper price point products as well. But, Apple making more money by selling less. That's not a bad way to be, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. So, a couple of questions out of that.
Yep.
So Apple have already moved into the Chinese market, have they?
Apple are well and truly entrenched in the Chinese market. They have a number of stores over there as well. So they have a direct to retail offering. And the Chinese, the suggestion was that when they brought out the gold iPhone, that was directly for the Chinese market.
Oh, okay.
So yes,
So
very interesting.
have we got figure? We haven't got them handy, but I wonder if there's figures that kind of say out of the amount that they've sold, how many were those, from China?
I don't think they've released that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because they're not really, they don't like releasing kind of detailed figures, do they, Apple?
No. Apple give you the bare minimum that they required for their public listing, and that's about it. So,
Okay.
the only thing that Apple have committed to doing in recent times is that they are repatriating a lot of their profits back into the United States. I don't know if it's because of Donald Trump's new tax bill or other reasons, but they're bringing money in, and they're going to invest in some more manufacturing in the US and things like that. But there's probably a couple of different things that play with that little move as well. So,
yeah.
Look, it'd be interesting to see how they go.
Where I was going along the lines of, have they saturated the market yet? Have they got room to grow? Is everyone who wants an iPhone got an iPhone?
In some markets, yes. I think the Australian market's very well covered. Then some people will go to Android and they're happy to stick with Android. What I find is that people, and I'm not criticizing. I mean, I think that Android's actually a pretty good product. There's certain flavors of Android that I don't like, so I'm not a huge fan of the Samsung flavor.
No, neither am I.
But the Google Pixel, which is you've got your nice clean phones, even the Oppo phones, and apparently there's also a lower price Nokia phone that runs a pretty well pure Android at a good price. A really valid option. But there are anecdotal evidence people who are not as comfortable with technology move away from iPhone and then they move back.
Okay.
Whereas, and then there are other people who will move away and they stay away. I mean, the market varies. So, it comes down to each and their own. But the thing is that in developing markets, particularly India, the iPhone doesn't have much of a stronghold because of the average selling price.
Yep.
So they certainly have higher cost. They have lower mark phones in the market. So Apple have an interesting issue. They create a cheaper phone, and it's great for markets like India and parts of China and things like that, which is all good and well. But then if they continue to offer that phone in Western markets, they potentially cannibalize sales off their higher range anyway. So there's a bit of a catch-22 on that. The other thing is that because usually the cheaper phones are older generations, they then have to maintain updates for the older generations longer, which means that it's harder for them to push their planned obsolescence plan, which forces people in getting new phones.
Yeah.
A perfect example was that the iPad 4th generation, when the most recent iOS came out, did not get the new iOS because it was 64-bit only and that was a 32-bit processor.
Mm-hmm.
I went and bought a new iPad.
All right.
Because, otherwise I couldn't upgrade. It's getting time to do it anyway, but, that's that sort of planned obsolescence practice.
So that brings up a question I was going to ask, mainly for phones, but I guess it's applicable with iPads.
Yeah.
I guess we're a special case because of the industry that we work in and the fact that we're actually keen on technology. But the average person, do they upgrade their phone at the end of the plan? Do they upgrade the phone when the phone dies? Do they upgrade the phone as soon as the next phone comes out?
This is a good question.
That's my good question for the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some people are. I think it depends on the person. There's some people who have no idea about technology yet. They upgrade their phone as soon as their contract ends.
Yep.
There are other people who want the latest and upgrade, and there are other people who don't care. So it depends. Like I'm an outright buyer, so I buy my phones outright. I will look after my existing device as well as I can. I mean, I keep a case on it at all times, and I have a the glass screen protector, which costs $40, but it's really good. But that means that when the end of my 2-year cycle comes up, that I will, rip all that stuff off, give the phone a good polish, and it's basically a brand new phone. And I on average have sold my phones for $450 at the end of 2 years,
Oh, wow.
which gives me a good kick into the new device.
Yeah.
Other people just, they treat them as disposable items. I mean, really, that's a $1,000 computer.
Mm.
So everyone can just see what time we're recording this too.
Yeah.
$1,000 computer. So, I look after it. And, I'm sure you look after your device as well. Where other people, like people that go around without cases on, freak me out. But that's just me being a little bit anal.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I've got a case on mine, but I was just thinking when you were going through all the stuff that you've got. I mean, these manufacturers go out of their way, bend over backwards, spend hours of work all night to try and design this nice, light, thin phone, and people like us will put protectors on it, case on it. Other people will put like a thicker kind of battery thing on it. It kind of counteracts the effort that they go to make it nice and thin and light.
I do agree, but then that said, the case, I mean, I'm an Apple fanboy. The case I use is an Apple case. So you can even see the logo a little bit in there. But, I also throw my phone into my pocket with keys and change and all that sort of stuff. So my phone would be a complete mess if it wasn't for the fact that I have it covered. So, and I've got to the point where I will pick up my phone in store and the person who gives me the phone goes, I will let you open it to do the honors. But then I hand the phone directly to them to put the screen protector on.
All right.
Like I will not use the phone before the screen protector's on it. So I get a bit anal.
Superstitious or?
Yeah, a little, but it's, resale.
Yeah.
The thing is, I like buying lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. And, if I turn the camera around, which I won't do right now, but, there's a TV and there's a computer and there's, I can see my Amazon Echo, there's a Google Mini and there's PlayStations and IP phones and all sorts of nonsense on the other side of the desk. But the reason why I do it is because once I finish the useful life of something, I put it back in the box and sell it.
Yeah.
And that's how I pay for my next toy. Like, yeah, I'll lose money. Of course I'll lose money. But except on an Apple TV. I have sold Apple TVs for more than I paid for them brand new. Weird. Another story. But there was a generation that they don't make anymore that had an optical audio out. Don't ask.
All right. Oh, yeah, I got
so anyway. Oh, yes. Anyway, we might move on to the next thing, but we'll keep on the theme of mobile phones. And there was some news regarding, for those who like Android devices, Samsung Galaxy S9 images have leaked ahead of the Mobile World Congress. Samsung is expected to announce the Galaxy S9 in a few weeks at Mobile World Congress on February 25th in Barcelona. And the latest leak from Twitter user Evan Blass, who's been pretty successful in the past, is giving the best look at the phone yet. Along with a first glimpse of a new lilac purple color, the images give people a good look at the redesigned fingerprint reader that places it below the camera sensor, one of the major flaws of the S8. Also seen in the pictures are a 2-camera module that the larger S9 Plus will have, which look to be vertically oriented module similar to the iPhone X. Samsung's tease highlighted that the device would offer improvements to the camera, but we'll have to see what they've got lined up when they announce the device officially. They also suggest, or Evan Blass also suggests, that they will launch the S9 in 4 colors: midnight black, lilac purple, titanium grey, and coral blue, although it's unclear if all 4 of those colors will be available in all regions. Now, Shayne, what would you choose? Midnight black, lilac purple, titanium grey, or coral blue? Are you a lilac purple person?
No. I would go either the blue, black, or the grey. Yeah, lilac clashes my complexion.
That's all right. I go, not that I would buy a Samsung phone, but I go black on the iPhone for no other reason that the white phones, the ones that have the white screen on the white glass, you can see where the screen is. When then that phone turns off, it's all pure black.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I do it. Anyway, but going back to one point it said was that they are moving the fingerprint sensor because Samsung royally stuffed up on the S8, where they put the fingerprint sensor. Basically meant every time you tried to unlock your phone, you'd cover the camera.
Yeah, smudge the camera. Yeah.
So good move on their behalf. Look, to be honest, as much as the actual Samsung devices, I think are really good. It's their software integration and the amount of crap that they overlay on top of Android that is the issue.
Yep.
So hopefully they start to, and I know that Google gets a bit antsy at them too, but they put up with it because Samsung are the preeminent supplier. That's the supplier of Android devices. Like more Samsung devices are sold than other Android, even though the combined other Android would be bigger than Samsung, but as a single manufacturer there. But look, as also mentioned, Mobile World Congress, February 25th. That's always a big event for the year in mobile phones. They announced the Nokia 3310 resurrection last year. So I've been very tempted to go and buy one, but I haven't bitten the bullet. I'm like, what would I do with it other than have it for shits and giggles, to be perfectly honest?
Did they actually release it here? Because I knew that the one that they announced was it like a 2G?
It was 2G, and it would have been outdated in this country within 6 weeks of the Congress, because they were in the process of finally switching off the 2G networks in Australia.
Yeah.
But they did create a 3G version.
Oh, okay.
But I'm assuming that, I haven't used one, but I'm assuming that the battery life probably isn't as good as what the 2G one was.
No,
I used to have a 2G phone for work, and I would get like 8 days, 9 days battery out of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It didn't do anything, but yeah. The other question I was going to ask about the Samsung, does that story say whether they're going to run with Bixby?
No, but I think that we will find out more about the software angle of it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, at the launch, yeah.
Yeah. One more news article for today. Home Affairs plots a single digital window for Australia's international trade. Australia's newly established Home Affairs Super Agency wants to create a single digital window through which all Australia's international trade would flow. The secure window would underpin a modernised international trade system for a country that is digital, automated, and user-friendly, they said. It revealed it is currently working with other government agencies and industry to develop its proposal for trade modernisation that will present to government for approval. For those who didn't know, Home Affairs was created in December last year. It's the central policy agency for federal law enforcement, national and transport security, cybersecurity, criminal justice, emergency management, multicultural affairs, and immigration functions. What else could they possibly do? Its remit also is the management of trade across Australia's border. The thing that is I can't say that word. Interesting. There we go.
Yeah.
Home Affairs also revealed it is studying how blockchain distributed ledger tech could be integrated into the trade ecosystem. Blockchain has the potential to help reduce trade documentation, processing times, and costs and delays stemming from physical movement of paperwork. It would also provide visibility of goods as they move through the supply chain. Trade information required by governments for border clearance purposes is created by industry operators in the international supply chain, and Home Affairs assessing how it could leverage information that might be held on a trade blockchain. So I find that's the interesting part of that. We've talked in episode 1, we talked about cryptocurrency, and obviously the key tool underpinning all cryptocurrency is the blockchain.
Yep.
And a lot of people have talked and blustered and worked, said, oh, we can use blockchain to do all these sort of things. But seemingly, and I'm happy to be corrected, seemingly, so firstly, if I am wrong, send us an email down the bottom there, mindtechopinion@prosumerit.com. But we will, but a really good implementation of blockchain outside that cryptocurrency space is what's needed. So hopefully they find a good way to implement it and bring it in, because it would certainly help, and it would certainly help identify goods coming into the country and manifest and things like that, rather than waiting on a folder to lob in via Australia Post, because they're so good with what they do. I say that highly sarcastically. Your thoughts on that, Shayne?
I was just thinking when you're rattling off all the things that super duper new ministry kind of kicks off, and I mean the guy in charge of it is Peter Dutton. Am I thinking of the right person? Yeah.
Oh, you are absolutely correct.
Yeah, he's come a long way since he was a cop in a past life.
Yeah. Peter Dutton, I'm trying to think of a way to describe Peter Dutton. He
Without getting sued.
Yeah. He I don't know. He looks like I'll think of something humorous to say at another time. I was going to make a disparaging comment, and I shouldn't be the one to make disparaging comments, so that's okay. But yes, go on. Sorry.
No, that's really all I had to add.
But yeah, look, it'd be interesting to see what goes on there. So anyway, that is the news for this week on My Tech Opinion. We are going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. All right. Well, welcome back to My Tech Opinion. Thanks for, having a break. Now, if you are listening on the podcast, you can also view the video episodes of My Tech Opinion. They do a search on YouTube, or go to youtube.com. Actually, I've got the old address in my notes, Shayne. What is our new address at YouTube? youtube.com/?
Well, at the moment, it's still going to be youtube.com/PresumerITAU. We're potentially looking at changing it.
Okay.
Reason being is because at the moment we've got like a channel dedicated to MTO, My Tech Opinion. Yep. And then the address that we are going to advertise is actually for the network, where other things will be like reviews and that sort of thing.
Right. So let's start that again. Prosumer IT is going to be a bit of a wider network where we will have, we'll progressively get more content up there, such as written pieces. You never know, there might be a different podcast in the future, or other video content or written content. Yep. Whereas My Tech Opinion is this particular product that you're watching or listening to right now.
Yeah, it's Google's fault.
Google. We'll blame Google for everything.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah. But if you go to prosumerit.com, we will link through right there to our YouTube videos. You can also go to facebook.com/prosumerit. There's also Twitter at prosumerit, and our web address straight to the podcast page, www.prosumerit.com. The other thing is, you can hear us also on Aussie Tech Heads Radio, on any app that supports Shoutcast streams, such as Winamp, or any other things for your mobile device, or just go to the website aussietechheads.com.au/radio. So have a look at that. And before we get into our feature topic, don't click the button yet, Shayne. We're nearly there. I didn't really ask, how have you been?
Me?
We didn't really sort of have a general natter at the start of the show. We went straight into the tech news.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the news and everything was more important.
Oh, absolutely.
Other than my boring life, at least, anyway. Nothing special has happened this week. Still doing things, or I don't know if people know, but at the moment I live about an hour or so south of Perth.
Yep.
So on the beach, got great NBN coverage, but it costs a fortune to get to work and back, and it takes a while to get to work and back. So I'm downsizing the house and trying to move a little bit closer to town. So I'm doing that. Yep. And what other tidbits of my life can I let listeners in on? That's about it. I've had unbelievable NBN problems in the last few weeks.
Because after a chat we had, probably not on air, but you decided to change NBN providers, and because you've got fibre to the premises, you've got the Uni-D box with the 4 ports in it, and they just said, yep, it's connected within 24 hours. And you went, great. And then it just hasn't worked properly.
Quicker than that. No, I was having problems. with my previous provider.
So you were having problems.
Yeah, I was having problems with my previous provider. And I'll let you know what the symptoms were. And if any smart persons out there wants to contact us via email, again, using the mytechopinion@prosumerit.com, what appears to have happened is that for whatever reason, and it appears to be mainly on Saturdays and Sundays. Don't know why, but from my perspective, like a user's perspective on the inside of my network, the internet would drop out. I could get in from the outside because I've got VPN set up and I can get to my router from the outside and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that the WAN connection itself wasn't dropping out. And further investigation, it appeared to be DNS related because if I knew the IP address for where I was going, it would be fine. It would work. It just appeared to be DNS related. So I took the router out of the equation. I put the cable straight from the NBN box to my laptop. And it did it. It doesn't do it all the time. It's not a kind of a, at 2:00 in the afternoon, you can set your clock by it kind of thing. It's just random. But mainly on the weekend for whatever reason. And so I knew it wasn't the router. I knew it wasn't any other device because, again, I isolated just my laptop. When it does happen, though, it does affect every device on the network. My network is kind of complex when the router's up and running, everything, because I've got stuff on one subnet. I've got 4 subnets with things happening. But again, I took the router out of the equation. And then I thought, well, the only common thing is my provider. So I thought, I've heard great things about Aussie Broadband, and they've been great kind of, when I jumped across. And how did I do it? I basically just filled in an application form online, and I didn't even know initially that it had actually jumped across. They sent me a couple of emails here, there, and everywhere, and one of them had my login details, but I don't read kind of fine print that well. And and I contacted them, left a message saying, how am I going to know when this is up and running? What do I do? Does it just kind of happen? And then they got back in touch with me and they said, no, if you change the changes already happened. If you just change the port from 1 to 2. You should be up and running. So the whole process from going from the old provider to the new provider was a couple of hours. It was seamless. It was great. And
the thing for those who don't have fibre at home, the only reason why it was seamless was because you have fibre.
Yes.
Because you've got the multi-port, whereas in other situations it takes a bit more work and playing around with settings to get that happen. But anyway, go on.
That was good. So then I thought, and I didn't have any problems. I thought this is great. And then the guy, I must have reported the issue at some point or told them about the issue at some point. They must have asked me why I kind of jumped ship or something, and I told them. And that's right. They then reported it to the NBN because they kind of agree with me as well and said, well, you've now changed providers, you've isolated equipment and all that kind of stuff. You've done all the hard work. Let's report it to the NBN and see what they say. And the NBN got back to them a couple of days later saying, no, there's nothing wrong.
And you were using the standard DNS servers from the provider, not custom?
I switched around. I did everything. I went from the old provider's DNS. I did the Google 8888 and 8844. Then when I jumped ship to Aussie Broadband, I did their DNS, which is what I'm running with at the moment. Because as soon as the guy rang me and I said, no, everything's been rock solid, all that kind of stuff, and he kind of let me know that the NBN got back to them and said there was nothing wrong. As soon as I said that, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have problems. I bet you'll have problems. Sure enough, on Saturday mainly and a bit on Sunday, the same thing happened. I restart the router and it comes good, and it's good for usually a few hours, or it might be good for that day. And the other weird thing is, and most of the drama I was running with Google DNSs, it seems to occur when I'm on a Google page, like if I'm watching YouTube or trying to do something podcast wise, because we use obviously Google services for our podcast and we use the Google Drive and all that kind of stuff. Seems to be when it kicks in. So I'm surprised that everything's. I'm glad everything's been rock solid so far, but I'm surprised at the same time.
Yeah, look, it's certainly an interesting one. I luckily don't have those issues, but that said, I'm still on ADSL at my maximum of about 9 megabits per second. So I have fibre out the front of my house. It is not switched on yet, but I am getting fibre to the curb, and hopefully it'll improve the quality of our videos when we get there too. So it's going to be an interesting exercise, and we'll see what happens. But I hope your internet goes well, and if you do move in the next few months, that it's going to be good from that perspective as well. So,
I'm making sure that's one of the criteria of the new house in the areas that I'm looking at. It's got to have. I mean, I'll settle for like fibre to the node if I really have to, but the area that I'm looking at and the house that I'm kind of honing in on has actually got fibre to the premise as well. So hopefully, nothing will change.
Well, the other interesting thing is, and I won't go on too much about it, but my wife and I are considering knocking down our house and building a new one on the same plot. And why? Because we can rather than we need to, but we want storage. But anyway, but because the whole block will be torn up and being redone, I will be investigating if we get down that track, and it might be 18 months away before we do it, but investigating having fibre to the premises instead, because part of the cost of the technology switchover is that, you've got to have your garden dug up or potentially things like that if the conduit's not enough. Well, guess what? If we rebuild, they're going to put a new bloody line in. So hopefully we might get there at some point anyway.
Yeah.
But in terms of what I've been doing, basically crapping on about houses, because that's just, consuming my life, and going to third birthday parties. So that's been exciting as well.
I shouldn't
say too much about that because we are broadcasting live to the world. Anyway, we might get onto our feature topic. We are about 40 minutes into this and we haven't hit our feature topic yet, but I'm going to get you to press the magic button, Shayne, and say, here's our feature topic for today. How fast does your internet connection really need to be? So, Senator Mitch Fifield, the Minister for Communications in the Turnbull government, put an opinion piece, went on the project and made a few things, and he was talking about internet speeds, because they're saying, well, only X amount of fibre to the node users can get 50 meg and all this sort of stuff. But his comment, and there's Mitch looking like he's had a paddle pop stick stuffed up his backside. He said, for most families, there is not much of a practical difference between 25 megabits per second and 100 megabits per second to deliver the features that they want. There you go. So the question is, do you agree with that? Do you think that I have an opinion on it, but I'm going to get yours first.
I had an opinion, and we were talking before the show about a particular thing, and I'll tell the story, but I'll keep kind of names out of it to protect the innocent.
Sure.
So my opinion was yes, people will know the difference between 25 and 100, because just things happen faster. But an acquaintance of mine has just connected the NBN to the house that they've just moved into, and they're with Telstra, and they've got one of those Telstra Gateways Frontier boxes, the ones that have the NBN fibre connection, because they got fibre to the house.
Yep.
Because they're just up the road. And it's got the 3G or 4G kind of fallback if the NBN goes out.
Sure.
I was helping them with setting up some sort of parental controls and all that kind of stuff, did a speed test on it, and noticed that she was only getting 6 megabits down and I think about 1 point something up.
Right.
And I thought, this isn't right given the technology you're supposed to be on. Had a hunt around the settings and everything, and it turned out that it wasn't connected to the NBN through the Ethernet port. It was using the mobile fallback thing. So consequently, the signal was bouncing up and down, and so was so the connection was flaky at best. But for what they were doing on it, they didn't even know. If it wasn't for me to point it out that they were paying for 100 down, I think it was at the time, and they were only getting 6. Yeah, they would have been none the wiser. And they do things like there's there's 2 teenagers in the household. One of them is on the computer most of the day playing online games. They watch YouTube stuff, that kind of thing, and they're a family, or they're a family of 3, and and they were none the wiser. I mean, they're annoyed now that I pointed it out to them, but up to that point, they were none the wiser.
Yeah, and the thing is, if I actually looked at, and my thoughts are, if I looked at the comments that Senator Fifield made, he did it as a comment piece in the Fairfax Media. If I looked at the statement that he made, I actually agree with him. I think that most people, for the majority of people, don't know the difference between 25, 50, and 100. But, and there's a very big but on this, and it's not mine.
Or the Senate.
Yeah, or the senators. That doesn't mean we shouldn't roll out the super fast network. I think you're thinking about the senator's butt now, aren't you?
No, I'm thinking about your other podcast.
Yes. Yeah, there's pictures of buttholes. That's a whole other story. I made a comment and then it's been snipped and taken out of context. I made another faux pas on the show yesterday talking about. Anyway, we won't go there. I don't want to lower the tone of this. I don't want to lower the tone of this show. But the thing is that the government created a mixed technology mode where they're looking for the now. But the other side, they're creating a product for the now. But the other thing is that the Labor government aren't actually helping the situation much anyway, because they keep saying that, consumers can't get those speeds. But the thing is that they will, because of the type of network that's now been rolled out, they will, even if they don't need the speeds now, they will never need the speeds. And I did a search on how long does people expect. So if we had have gone the fibre option, how long do they think fibre would last for if we did fibre to the premises? And this was a piece that was written in 2011 on ZDNet. And it was obviously when they switched the first suburb onto fibre and said, Armadale might be live, but for how long? Will the fibre need replacing in 20 to 25 years? I said, no, no is the short answer. Despite NBN detractors claiming that the fibre lasts only a couple of decades, people building networks are working on 40 years as a minimum, and some are expecting the fibre to last 100 years. That is a very key part of that. So what they're saying is that because the cheapest part of upgrading a network is not the fibre, it's putting a box in at the house and a box in at the exchange, level. They can do that pretty easily because the fibre's already there. And even in the time of the NBN, they have actually enabled gigabit services over the fibre that they've put out. No one's offering them because they're too cost prohibitive. But the fact is, they're there. Yeah. So while we might not need it now, the fact that we have a network capable of it, we don't have to do major investment in 2010, 20, 30, 40 years' time is a massive, massive boon. So, in short, the senator is correct. My parents, are going to connect to the NBN. They'll only need a 25 megabits connection. I will be getting 100 when I get mine, but that's because I'm a weirdo and I want to download the entire internet. But even doing things like this, I want the faster uploads as well. I've noticed, anyway, we'll come back to that. But yeah, my parents don't need the 100, but the fact that the network is capable of it, because my parents are going to be around for another 10, 15, 20 years. But then the next person that buys their house or the person after that may want that 100, or they might need that 100 for work, for, the video type thing and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that not a lot of work has to be done to get it up to that point, because I can see, particularly with fibre to the node, we are going to get to a point in 5 or 10 years' time where we're going to go, it's too slow, we need to upgrade it. But the current government doesn't expect to be in power by then, and they'll leave it to someone else to clean up the mess.
Yeah. Didn't you say, even with your fibre to the curb thing, I don't know if it was on this show or your other show, where the initial rollout, they're putting in equipment that isn't going to be as fast as what it could be.
Yeah.
I've hit a nerve.
Yeah, I've hit a nerve. Basically, NBN came out and said, we're going to roll out fibre to the curb. It's going to be VDSL2, or VDSL, I should say, which is the same technology that is used in fibre to the node. The key difference is, there's two key differences. One is the issue that causes fibre to the node problems is the distance away from the premises to the node. The further you are away from the node, the slower speed you'll get. So in theory, the people who are on fibre to the node and really happy with it, they're probably living next door to the node. Yeah. So with fibre to the curb is that they're effectively bringing the node to the front of your house. So really, I'm going to have some copper going from the house down the garden, across the street, and we're done. So the speed issue shouldn't be too much of a problem. A friend of mine's got a business that's got fibre to the basement, which is VDSL2. Same principle. He's getting 96, 38. 96 up, the down 36, 38 up. That's pretty good.
Mm.
And with TPG, which I wasn't expecting. So, and the other thing that's different with the fibre to the curb network is that where fibre to the node, you have to run a great big power cable into the silly green refrigerator box on the side of your street, power it. Fibre to the curb is reverse powered. So you will have a modem supplied by NBN, and it will send a 5-volt power feed back down the line to contribute towards the powering of the little node that sits in your pit across the road.
Oh, okay.
That's the key difference. So the one thing that NBN are doing, which I think is good, fibre to the curb, is that not one provider is going to supply a modem. So your ISP will not supply you a modem when you're on fibre to the curb. NBN will supply the modem, and your provider might supply you with a wireless gateway.
Yep.
In my case, I ain't using wireless gateways from anyone because I've got my own gear that I prefer because I'm a weirdo. But the thing is that what they were saying was that, and going back to your original point, was that the VDSL, I keep saying 2 because I'm used to ADSL2, VDSL, and that they would then be making the network capable of going on to GFast by the end of 2018. So they've announced that the modem or the network communication device or whatever they call it will be GFast and VDSL capable. That they just need to do a firmware upgrade when they've done the additional testing. And Netcom, who's their main supplier, have said they've got DPUs that are GFast capable as well. However, through a Senate estimates or Senate hearing, they admitted that the initial rollout suburbs of fibre to the curb will not get GFast capable distribution points. And therefore, you won't be able to get faster speeds unless they replace that unit. Now, all that said and done, I should be able to get 100 by 40 on VDSL. However, if my needs increase in the future, I won't necessarily have much more than that.
Okay.
But then it's an easier fix than what the fibre to the node guys are dealing with. So there's pluses and minuses to that.
Yep.
But really, the way I look at it is that 25 megabits is going to be the most a lot of people need. Probably 50 is probably the midpoint, and a lot of people need the 100. But and I think we've discussed outside the show realms that you, Shayne, were considering that when you do move, that you may go down to a 50 megabit plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I was going from a family situation where there was people doing all sorts of stuff at the same time.
Multi people in your house.
Yeah, and down to just me. So,
Yep.
And I still need, because for what we're doing now, I still need the upload speeds, and so 50 is probably the way to go. I'm even thinking of dropping the download limit because I'm at work most of the time. I'm a dedicated person when it comes to work. People that
well done.
Just in case my boss listens to this. And so, yeah, so I don't need either the speed that I'm at the moment, or I'm probably not going to even need the amount of downloads that I currently get. And that kind of also, I think, contributes to the whinging, for the want of a better word, that people have about the NBN speeds. Is because I reckon a lot of the time they've gone for the 12 plan, which is essentially ADSL speeds. Even if they go for the 25, what's 25? Is it 25 and 5?
I think so.
So that's not a lot better than ADSL speeds anyway.
Well, and this comes down. This is also. I mean, the providers have had to change their advertising because of concerns from the ACCC about promising and under delivering. So they're advertising a speed, which we know, the people who are in the know knows that it's generally a theoretical speed. But when you then get to the computer on the other end of your connection that's, serving you the file or Netflix or whatever, that could get bottlenecked as well. That impacts the space there too. So there are other things in that, but people were obviously clearly getting under delivered through capacity issues and what have you. So they've changed the advertising. But that said, I've looked at the Telstra website and it says you can sign up to NBN and the price is $99 a month for whatever, for unlimited downloads and what have you. And I'm intending on moving providers when the NBN comes into my area. And it's likely to be Aussie Broadband for a multitude of reasons. But the thing is that that is my particular thought. But then I was thinking to myself, am I having buyer's, even though I haven't signed any contracts, am I having buyer's remorse because Telstra have updated my plan to be unlimited? Should I stay with them? Things like that. But I then had to look on the fine print, and I'm talking a lot of fine print that Telstra offer the 50 megabit plan as standard. But if I want to go to the 100 megabit, I've got to pay an extra $30 or $20 to $30 a month.
All right.
Which then changes the cost perspective a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've now completely determined that, I'm moving. There's no question about it now.
So I'm with Aussie Broadband. You're moving to Aussie Broadband. Sounds like Aussie Broadband should get in touch with us and sponsor the show.
They should sponsor us. And the radio station I'm involved with is also going to move to Aussie Broadband when the NBN gets switched on in that location as well. So I think Aussie Broadband, we should actually reach out to the CEO of Aussie Broadband. They're always happy to talk to the media, so we might get them on at some stage on another topic.
Yeah.
So we will do that. That said, what we might do, we're going to talk about some of the growth in traffic on the internet and why these speeds could be needed in the future. But we are going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with more Market Tech Opinion straight after this. Yep.
The only thing with all these breaks is you got a lot of editing to do.
Won't take long. All right.
Because what I do is because vMix strips out the audio anyway.
Yep.
And I don't do anything with that audio, but with the video, because the first couple of episodes there was, the audio was a little bit off.
Yep.
As in, like, one of us was louder than the other. I run a filter through it in Adobe Premiere. An older version. So I run a filter through it that's supposed to level the noise out.
Yep.
And it's supposed to also make the file smaller, because this file is probably going to be like about 7 or 8 gig in size.
Right.
And then by the time Adobe does its thing, it drops it down to probably 5 or 6 gig.
We'll be good. We'll be fine. All right. We're going to do this and then finish it because I need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
All right. All right, well, welcome back to My Tech Opinion. Thanks for sticking with us after our very short break. We are talking about how fast do we need our internet connection to be? How fast is fast enough when it comes to NBN. There's a lot of talk about people not getting the 100 megabits plan or not getting up to the 100 megabits, whereas a lot of people are opting for the 25 or the 50 and things like that. We did talk about before the break that a lot of people don't need it, but the capability of it to be there is an option. And the other thing is, which was my thought, I don't think that the providers are explaining the speed tiers enough or in clearer language to users to make an informed choice. There are people who will just stick to Optus, Telstra, whoever, Vodafone off of NBN services now. So maybe that is part of what the education campaign should be. But in terms of where we're going to need to be long term, I was looking at a report from Cisco or a white paper that was released in June last year, and it's called the Zettabyte Area Trends and Analysis. I'm going to give you a couple of key figures off it, just out of interest, so that we've something to talk about there. And I thought I had it in there, but I don't, so we've got it here. Annual global IP traffic will reach 3.3 zettabytes per year by 2021, or 278 exabytes per month. In comparison, in 2016, the annual run rate for global IP traffic was 1.2 zettabytes per year, or 96 per month. So you're looking at like a threefold increase in 5 years, which is pretty and we're in a fairly mature internet market now. Smartphone traffic will exceed PC traffic. I'm going to give you a quick few headings and we'll go into some detail of them. Here's an interesting one. Content delivery networks, or CDNs, will carry 71% of internet traffic by 2021. So content delivery networks, YouTube will use them. If you're listening to this podcast, it was probably delivered on a content delivery network, as well as, Netflix, any of the catch-up TV services, all delivered by those type of things. The number of devices connected to IP networks will be more than 3 times the global population by 2021. There will be an average of 3.5 network devices per capita by 2021, up from 2.3 per capita in 2016. So there'll be 27.1 billion network devices in 2021.
There'll be things like cameras, fridges, ovens, baby monitors.
So here's a quick question. Do you know offhand how many network connected devices you have in your house, Shayne?
I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's dropped because obviously people have moved out. So I still reckon I'm probably got about 10.
Okay. And I do the swinging member thing now. Last count I had 38.
Yeah, but like you've been saying the whole show, you're weird.
Yeah. However, it's things like I've got 10 Wi-Fi connected light switches, and even lighting me for this video, for those who are watching on the video, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 LifeX lights pushing light onto me, as well as a few in the lounge room and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm a bit strange, but anyway, we'll continue on. Consumer on demand internet video to TV grew 50% in just 1 year, 2016. And internet video to TV will be 26% of fixed consumer internet video traffic in 2021. Consumer on demand video traffic will double by 2021. Internet gaming traffic will grow nearly tenfold from 2016 to 2021. What else? There's a few little things there. It was just, and I'll put the link in the show notes in terms of internet growth traffic, but it's phenomenal, the amount of growth. So in 2016, there was estimated about 16 billion devices. and that will grow to about 26 billion in 2021. The figures are phenomenal. I recommend that you have a look at the Cisco link in the show notes. It will have it all there. It's quite a long white paper, but you basically see graphs that are just going up and up and up exponentially. It even talks about IP video surveillance traffic will increase massively.
Oh, right.
And it's things like in Australia, I mean, they've had these in the US for a while, but there's the Nest video cameras. And I was looking at the stats for those, and the Nest camera requires 1 megabits of upload bandwidth just per camera, its surveillance function.
Is that what resolution is that there?
1080.
Okay.
But it just says that's what we need.
Yeah.
And that will just continue to push up from your home network. So if you want to put 3 or 4 of them around, that's a fair crack of your bandwidth.
Yep.
So I have not gone that option. I've gone wired with Part Cloud. Long story. But yeah, it's to minimize the impact on my internet connection. So, but yeah, have a look at that, and it'll show that. I suppose the correlation I'm putting in there is that Mitch Fifield has come out with this comment and said, everyone just needs 25 megabits. He's right. But with the increase of traffic in the next even 5 years, that we are on track to outpace that. And you would argue that the standard should be 50 at the very least. So it is going to be an eyesore, I think, long term, where the government or whoever owns the NBN by that stage are going to have to turn around and say, we need to substantially upgrade or overbuild areas that have the slower internet speeds. Is there anything you want to add, Shayne, to that discussion? Because I've got a bit of cotton mouth now. I'm dried out.
Parched. I think we've pretty much covered it from all angles. We've covered the fact that people, other than people like ourselves, probably wouldn't notice the difference between 25 and 100. And I kind of use the analogy of the people that have got the issues with Telstra. And but then you got to future-proof it as well. So we kind of covered that angle. And then you have got people like ourselves that are more interested in the upload speeds, and to get those upload speeds, essentially the download speeds, we've got to go up a tier to get the upload speeds that we need. And when the NBN was kind of first even thought of, just past the thought bubble stage, all the ads you would see would be people like doctors in doctors' surgeries, talking to patients over the internet, and
2 weird guys doing podcasts via video on internet connections.
Yeah, exactly. All that kind of stuff. So to live up to those expectations, then you need to have at least 100. I don't know. I mean, and you go to somewhere like America, and just about everybody has got like a gigabit connection.
Yeah, the American experience is an interesting one that we see a lot about, and there's a bit more truth to it that is different. So if we talk about the NBN in Australia, the one thing while I was, I want the fibre to the premises and all that sort of stuff, but the thing is that the most important thing for the NBN for me was about choice. So really, to me, the whole choice discussion is highlighted by what you told us earlier regarding your internet connection and changing providers. You decided that you would move to a different provider. You filled out an application form, and within 12 hours, you had an active internet connection on the extra port on your box in the house. That, forgetting about the issues that you've had, the fact that they got that connection active and going in that period of time shows that the design of the technology worked really well.
Yeah.
For me, I'm on an ADSL service that has a no available floor plan in the exchange. Therefore, the only service I can buy is a resold Telstra service, which means you pay more for it. I can't get a naked DSL service or anything like that. And I was finding that because of the way that Telstra has structured their pricing, that while I could get an internet connection on a naked service in another exchange for $60 a month, I was going to have to pay $90 to $95 with the same provider to get it at my address.
No.
And the NBN was designed, part of the NBN design was to democratize that. So have the ability to go, I want to go to Telstra, or I want to go to Optus, or I want to go to Aussie Broadband or TPG, or, PhilNet, which doesn't exist, that I could start up tomorrow. Yeah. And it's successful regardless. There are teething issues, and there was always going to be teething issues, but it's successful in doing that. But they've bastardized the network that is going to hamper some people of maintaining growth in those speeds long term. So that's where I see that the real issue is. And it was designed to be relatively equivalent for everyone. Now, I know that there was going to be fixed wireless and satellite as part of that mix, but really it was going to be fairly consistent. And then the reason why the government took charge of it was because you then see, as we talked about in our news section, Optus are going, well, we're going to roll out a 5G network, but guess what? We're only going to roll it out to capital cities to target people who live in apartments.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing with their hybrid fibre coax network. Telstra did the same thing. They rolled it out to 1 million houses and they went, it's costing us a bit more than we expected, so we're going to stop rolling it out. So therefore, they had this patchwork thing of networks. Like where I live, my current house was built in 1994, and I'm assuming that they rolled out the hybrid fibre coax around this area in about 92, 93, which sits around about the right time frame. So where I am, I back onto the old estate. So my house doesn't have cable, but the house behind me has cable of both flavors. Are on a different exchange that gives them about 5 different options in ADSL technology and all this sort of stuff. And that's where the issues are. Like the person who literally I could throw a stone in my backyard and hit their roof, they have those options. So we're just not planning for the future. That's just what it comes down to. And while I think the fibre to the curb is a good mixed way to get there, we still need to do something about the fibre for the node connections, and we will find at some point in the future that equipment that's only been there for 10 years is going to get ripped out and replaced with something.
Well, wasn't the main reason that they did the fibre to the node thing was to speed up the rollout in general, so then they would actually have the revenue coming in to do it properly the second time around?
Yeah, but we know that they're not going to do that if they don't have to.
Yeah.
The thing is that, there was articles in newspapers. I remember going to a seminar with the then Shadow Communications Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, at a local place not far from my house, where the local member had brought him in to talk about the fact that he'd finally convinced Tony Abbott not to ditch the NBN, because Tony wanted to completely dismantle what had been done at that point.
Yeah.
And they decided to keep it, but they would look at, doing this mixed technology mode model. And because it was so expensive and all this sort of stuff. And there was a newspaper letter to the editor in 1915 or something thereabouts that said, why is the government spending so much money rolling out telephone lines through the Postmaster General's office? What a waste of money. It's never going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And guess what? Those core telephone lines that were put in 1915 are still being used in principle today.
Yeah.
For the fibre to the node. So, and the government made a lot of money off Telstra, which they spun off from the PMG. That, to me, says, if they had played the longer game with the NBN, done the technology right, we would be okay.
Yeah, taking the hit financially at the beginning, and then, like you said, long term, the money would have started rolling in.
But you're right about, they wanted to get more people onto the network. And don't get me wrong, I actually think that the multi-technology mix is actually a good idea, because basically we're going to turn around and say, well, we've got Telstra on board to go into the NBN, but we've got this HFC network in place. We're going to switch off this network that was quite suitable for handling a couple of million houses of internet. Well, the thing is that they should have done the planning where they go, we're going to bring the HFC network on now. We're going to run that for 5 years. And the houses that have access to that HFC network will be the last to go to fibre.
Yep.
Because we've got a suitable system that they can use for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
The thing was, I don't have any choice. My whole area is notoriously underserved in majority of pockets, yet we are 7 years into the NBN project and we're only finally getting the cable rolled out now. There are other suburbs who had the HFC, who had adequate services, have the fibre put in already.
Mm.
That is a whole other discussion about the nonsense that is about the rollout, and there are key mistakes that both governments clearly made with that, but we could talk about that another time. But I think the statement saying, is 25 megabits capacity enough now, is correct. Is that short-sighted and not good planning for the future? Absolutely. It is not right. So there you go. That's my thoughts. Did you want to finish off with anything else before we finish this up for this episode?
Nothing specifically about the deep dive. I think we've kind of covered that fairly well. There's some stuff that I want to say generally about, getting in touch with us, and if you've got any other ideas and all that kind of stuff.
We do need to do that. Firstly, if you do want to get in touch with us to talk about your thoughts on fast speeds on NBN and things like that, we can talk NBN about hours and focus on different bits all the time, but we will try not to. We don't want to make this an NBN show. But send us an email, mytechopinion@prosumerit.com. You can also send us an email directly, phil@prosumerit.com, or Shayne@prosumerit.com if you like. Now, Shayne, you were going to mention our channels of ways that you can listen to us or what have you. We are on the audio podcast. For those who are listening on the audio, you can also see a video. If you're watching on the video, you can also hear an audio version. We've got both ways going there. If my concern is with the video version. I'm used to doing radio, so I know it's always an audio medium, but however, the way that we produce this even is that we look at each other via computer screens and what have you. So I'm also cognizant of the fact that we're doing a video podcast as well. And sometimes I forget that we're also doing audio. Weird issue to have. So if there's anything I've missed in the audio or something that I didn't mention that I talked about on screen, send us an email as well. But Shayne, tell us about how you can also find us.
Yep. So, everything we've talked about will be in the show notes.
Yes.
The show notes will be available on multiple locations. There's our main website, which is prosumerit.com. That has kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? We post the episodes on that as like a blog kind of thing. So there will be you can get to the video there if you want, and the show notes all as one kind of post. I've also got the audio available there. How I've kind of done it is you go prosumerit.com/MTO, and that'll take you to the posts that are specific to the My Tech Opinion stuff. And underneath that, there's another kind of menu item, another page that'll have all the historical audio. At the moment, there will be 3 episodes, so there's not a lot to look at the moment. So that's how that kind of works. You can also get us on Twitter. So the main Twitter handle is @prosumerit, and that gets monitored by myself and Phil. The My Tech Opinion email address goes to both of us as well. So whichever one you want to talk to, if you've got our individual emails and you've got the show one.
Absolutely.
The YouTube channel is the primary one is youtube.com/prosumeritau. But there's also the reason why were a bit funny about the channel specifically for My Tech Opinion and I kind of blamed it on Google. Google have changed the rules now that they won't allow you to do a custom URL until you get to so many subscribers. I think it's like 1,000 subscribers.
Is that caught into that part of that advertising and all that sort of stuff?
Exactly. That's why I said, tongue in cheek, we blame it on Google. Yeah, so we need, for us to get a custom URL for our MTO channel, we have to get so many subscribers. So what I'll probably end up doing is some sort of DNS trickery where I might have something like youtube.prosumerit.com/MTO for the MTO channel or just slash whatever for whichever other things that we put up.
Right, we'll work out a way, but the easiest way to do it is because we can embed them on the page. If you go to prosumerit.com/MTO, it's going to show you all the different ways to contact us. And the other thing is, if my editing skills are any good, as we're talking about this, if you're watching the video, you will see a list of all those addresses up on the screen as well.
Oh, going to get fancy.
I'm going to add it in post.
Oh, wow.
Leave it for the editing room. So, but yeah, as we said, prosumerit.com/MTO for the web, prosumerit on Twitter, facebook.com/prosumerit, which we'll get some stuff up on there, and youtube.com as well, prosumerit.au, and it'll all link together. So I think that's it for the show.
Yeah, I think we did. I think
we're done.
I think the episodes are getting better. The first couple had audio issues. Now we're doing things fancy, like we're getting slides happening, and we've got intros and outros. Yeah.
And we're doing multiple recordings of audio as well. So I've got a local copy on my end. So we'll get there. But remember, as I said, you can listen on the Apple podcast, or you can download the RSS via our website. But if you are doing it on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a review because it helps us get noticed in the store. So that would be really good. 5 stars only.
Yes.
Like your Uber rating.
Yes, nothing less.
Yes. Also, did you know that we are supported by Aussie Tech Heads Radio? Aussie Tech Heads web hosting, I should say. I'm at the wrong bit. And I'm going to read that again. My Tech Opinion is brought to you by Aussie Tech Heads web hosting. For great hosting plans and support, visit athwebhosting.com.au. We're going to head off, Shayne. We'll see you on our next episode. If we don't know what we're going to talk about on the next episode yet, do we?
No, we haven't thought that far ahead. So if anyone's got any ideas, we'll probably come up with something between now and then, though. Yes.
And it could be, I don't know what it could be. We'll work that out. I'm flailing, turning into a mess right now because it is very late in Melbourne town when we're recording this. It's a bit earlier over in Perth, so you've got the nicer end of the stick. But we are going to finish this up until episode 4 of My Tech Opinion. This has been Phil Edwards and
Shayne Johnson.
There you go. Thanks very much, and we will see you next time. From us, until then, goodbye.
Bye.